Okay, we are ready to call this meeting to order. The July 10th Administration and Public Works Committee at 5:10 p.m. The first order of business is call to order. May I have a roll call?
Recording in progress.
Councilmember Burns. Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Newsma.
Here.
With the quorum present, we are ready to begin our business. That brings us first to the approval of the minutes for the June 26th, 2023 meeting.
I'll move approval of those minutes.
Moved by Councilmember Newsma, seconded by Councilmember Harris.
Sure.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, any abstentions? The ayes have it. That brings us to public comment.
There's one community member signed up, and that's Mr.
Vasilko?
Vasilko
Yes.
online.
Mr. Vasilko.
Thank you. So I've got comments on A5, A6, A7. A5, I'm just curious why we're spending, or why we found 2028 GEO bonds in the value of $20,000 to put towards this project. And it's 5 years ago. Kind of where's that money been? And why that couldn't have been used, so we didn't have to have the same amount of GEO bonds in 2029, 2020, 21, 22, and 23. So it's just an observation that that money should have been better used. Item A6, looks like you have two consultants who were basically neck and neck, and staff chose to use the more expensive consultant, $50,000 more. If you look at page 48 of the packet, there's the HDR group, and then there's the TESCA group. So TESCA scored higher in qualifications, they scored higher in project approach, they scored higher, meaning they had a lower price for price. They tied in organizational and completeness of proposal. They were higher in the score for willingness to execute the agreement. They tied with MBEWB, and then in the subjective category, they were lower than HDR, and that's by 1 point was the total. They fell because of that one category, the most subjective. So that $50,000 could be saved if, I think, staff and council should reevaluate this 1 point difference. I don't know, to me, $50,000 is a lot of money. And then item A7, my only comment is, didn't we spend—
Mr. Vasilko, your time has elapsed, but you can briefly wrap up.
Thank you. Didn't we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with Jones Lang LaSalle to do basically the same thing as being proposed? I don't really understand entirely this putting assets to work incubator, but they're out of Utah. And it seems to me they won't know Evanston, and I just think we need more thought on this, and it should be held. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasilko. Is there any public comment in the room? Seeing, I think, almost exclusively staff? No. That brings us to our consent calendar. Is there anything folks would like to remove?
A6?
A6.
I'll remove A8 to say some good things about it, and hopefully we can still start P&D by 5:30.
A8. All right. Given that, I would like to remove A7. Okay, may I have a motion?
A5,
Okay,
just for discussion.
A5. All right.
All right, there goes P&D at 5:30. So.
No, mine
I
is
think we can
short.
still
Mine
do
is
it. We can still do it. All right. May I have a motion on the consent agenda minus items A5, A6, A7, and A8?
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Nusma,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That brings us first to item A5. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of agreement with Studio AH LLC, doing business as HPZS for consulting services related to the Ecology Center renovation. This is RFP 22-51, in the amount of $248,532.12.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Harris.
We talked about this, and I know we need it. I'm just wondering, at what point do we find companies that can do the consulting and the work? I've talked about that since day one. So we're spending $248,000 to tell us a problem, and then we're going to have to spend the money to get it fixed. So at some point, I'm hoping those work hand in hand, whether that's serendipitous or what. So no other comments.
Thank you. Does anyone want to respond? I would say, if I can just add a note to that, I do think sometimes sometimes consulting is the work. And this is the work that is done by a consultant, and this is their role. And I think that, I don't know if I'm, all right. Yep, we'll move on.
Yeah. And I recall reading something recently about a change in state law which expands the city's opportunity to enter into design-build contracts. I don't know anything more about it than able to say those words. I don't want to overstate that potential impact, but I'm not sure this project would fit that, be an appropriate fit for this new state law, but point taken.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. That brings us to item A6. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move item A6, approval of contract award to HDRA for the comprehensive plan and zoning code. This is RFP number 23-32 in the amount of $750,000.
Moved by Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Harris. Any discussion? Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, so I had some discussion with staff. I guess one of the things I asked is, I would just love to hear from staff, like what cities that HDR did a comprehensive plan for that they really liked and why. I asked that maybe we could hear about that this evening. I see that in there, the only one I see that they list, I'm not sure if it's finished or not, is Clearwater, Florida, but I'd love to hear a little bit about that, about which cities HDR has carried out comprehensive plans for. And why you thought they were good.
All right, good evening. For the record, Liz Williams. So I'm joined this evening in person and virtually by staff from HDR who can absolutely speak to their experience with comprehensive planning specifically. I just want to quickly, I know we're under time constraints, talk a little bit about why staff is making this recommendation. So we believe that HDR has submitted a very strong proposal that has a central focus on equity, public engagement, data visualization, and implementation. Specifically, HDR is proposing to conduct an equity summit at the forefront of this process. In addition, they are the only firm that is proposing to pull together the creation of alternative future scenarios. And this is important because it will allow the community the ability to visualize and ultimately balance the inevitable trade-offs that will have to be contemplated as part of this process. I would also say that their final product is actionable. It really helps and will help support decision-making down the road. Someone, wise in my history said 90% of planning is implementation. And I do wholly believe that, and HDR has the ability to develop a clear kind of next steps to help guide how these goals would be accomplished and who would be responsible to them. And then also, you know, in our observation, the HDR team has really, seems to be very cohesive. They've clearly worked together on other projects in the past. And I think this is going to help the city manage this project, having the familiarity. So if you don't mind, I'd like to turn it over to John. Shai is also available online, virtually. They have some quick slides that can speak specifically to your question.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. For the record, John Brook with HDR. And my colleague Shai Ruz is online on the Zoom. I think she has a slideshow which we can pull up, or it's also available here on the PowerPoint.
Should I pull it up on?
Yes, please.
Share? Screen.
So
evening.
Councilmember Kelly, I mean, we had prepared a presentation. Rather than going through that, we certainly would like to just be able to answer your first question, which was about experience. And I think Shai has got a slide here which can talk specifically to that.
So, good evening, council members. You'd asked about our experience in comprehensive planning. In the proposal, we chose a few of the plans that we thought would address what Evanston's looking for, what would be helpful, and only put one comp plan. But here you can see the thing with Evanston is it is smaller in size than the cities we're talking about here. However, when it comes to opportunities and challenges, Evanston clearly has the same opportunities and challenges like bigger metropolitan cities would. And so here we've got, we worked on the Denver land use and transportation plan, Chicago, Portland, Oregon, Galveston, Texas, Tampa, Florida. This is just to give you a feel that we have done plans nationally that have had very complicated issues, Hawaii, South Louisiana, again, Texas and Utah. The other thing we wanted to say is when it comes to comparable, we do have smaller comprehensive plans like Papillon. Currently, we're working on a comprehensive plan for McHenry in Illinois. Also, we on a couple of comprehensive plans in Texas for City of Denton, and we worked on a downtown plan for City of Allen. So more about it, we are a 106-year-old company, so I can just go on and on about the list. We also have global planning experience, comprehensive planning and writing zoning ordinances. In fact, we are right now working on zoning ordinances for some cities in Saudi Arabia. So, I mean, I'm open for any more questions.
Thank you. If I can ask that, as was modeled here, if we can be concise and directly answer the council members' questions just in the interest of time. Thank you. Councilmember Kelly. Anything further?
Yeah, I guess my question was, I just wanted to hear more. When I look through the portfolio, I see Clearwater, Florida as being a comprehensive plan. Others, I see like Parks and Rec comprehensive plan, some peer reviews and some zoning code reviews. And that's all great. I guess I was mostly wanting to know what cities, because the proof is in the pudding, right, of the work that one of these firms does, which cities did this specific firm do that staff felt impressed by? I guess that's to select this firm besides just the interview. And I understand and I also have some interest in the points that Resident Vasilko made about the original scoring, one firm coming in really high, and then in the more subjective determination, flipping those numbers to a very close 1 point difference. I guess I'd really want to know that we've looked at some other cities that this firm has done, and we were very impressed. So, thank you.
If I can
Is
quickly
that
say, I think that's a fair question. I think that's a part of the scoring matrix, and I think most of us had the opportunity to sit down with staff to discuss this.
I did too. I had asked that be presented this evening.
And I guess.
Because at the
I-
time, there was not, I didn't have, there wasn't a response at the time, so I was hoping to, this evening, to get one.
Okay, thank you.
I can just quickly say, you know, the firms that were shared, I think, are examples that staff are excited about. The fact that a firm that is nationally recognized is doing work in Denver, Colorado, I think, you know, that is experiencing a lot of challenges. That for us is intriguing, of wanting to see how they can bring that experience and exposure to Evanston, and how we may be able to address some of those, you know, utilize some of the solutions that they've come up with in those locales to be able to inform our process here. So I think the other component that was strong in terms of, you know, you spoke to the interview scores. During the interview, the team spoke a lot about the whole data visualization component and the future scenario planning. And I think that's going to be really critical to these somewhat complex and at times heated community conversations around topics, and needing to understand that there is the need to balance, and there are trade-offs. And if goals are prioritized in a certain way, they will lend themselves to certain types of outcomes. And so I think from our perspective, hearing that during the interview process was a piece that we weren't seeing the other firm bringing to the table. And that was really one of the components, in addition to the implementation focus of this particular firm. I think those are a few of the pieces that I'd like to share with you all in terms of our consideration.
Great, thank you. So did they do the Denver, comprehensive plan for Denver?
They did their land use planning and transportation alternatives, yes. So
But not the
the
okay.
comprehensive plan is all land use based. So I don't know if Shai wants to speak and elaborate a little bit to their role with that process.
Well, yeah, if I can ask, Councilmember Kelly, is there an amendment or a proposal or anything that you're seeking?
No, because I don't think I have the support here, but I guess I would like to see a proposal, see other cities presented to us in detail about what comprehensive plans. I know at the time when I spoke, it was just Clearwater, Florida, so, but I suspect I won't have a second, so.
Okay, well, with that, then I will ask that we end discussion there and vote on that. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
No.
The,
Got one no.
one no.
We'll have it.
And the ayes have it. So that brings us to item A7, approval to participate in the Putting Assets to Work Incubator. May I have a motion on that?
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Burns. I just wanted to say very quickly, and I think we still might get 5:30, that Luke, Manager Stowe isn't in here, I was looking for him, that Manager Stowe, before he was Manager Stowe, I think helped apply the city for this. And recently, Councilmember Burns and I were at a municipal conference and ran into the folks who put this on. And so I just want to recommend to Mr. Vasilko to check out Strong Towns and Urban 3. And I think you'd really be impressed with some of the work that the Urban 3 team has done for municipalities. I encourage everyone, actually, to look into Strong Towns and the work that Urban 3 has done. This is really exciting for the city of Evanston. I think if we follow through with a lot of the recommendations that come from these Putting Assets to Work incubators, that we will be able to find significant revenue for the city that will help offset the need to increase certain taxes and fees. And so this is really important work. I think it's more than worth the price tag. And one of the things that Urban 3 is really great at, we're missing the 5:30 mark, but one of the things Urban 3 is really great at is data visualization. So I will end it there. If there's no further discussion on that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. That brings us to our final item, which is item A8. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move item A8, approval of the expression of interest by Shell Equilon Enterprises to install electric vehicle charging stations in public parking facilities.
Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Harris. Any discussion? Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out, what we're talking about here is approximately $12 million in value to the city that costs the city $0. So this is a really exciting opportunity to advance our CARP goals specific to transportation, get 80 fast chargers in town at zero expense to the city of Evanston. Like, we are really lucky to be considered for something like this. What we're approving tonight is moving forward with the process. We're not approving a contract tonight. There are still some details to work out. In the interest of time, we don't need to go into those right now, but I just want to thank staff for putting us in a position to take advantage of an offer like this. $12 million value that costs us $0. So thank you, staff.
Thank you. And I also, thank you, staff. With no further discussion on this item, may I have all those in favor say aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any nays? The ayes have it, and at 5:31, our meeting is concluded.